Welcome to Fabriteq. This is our 2023 CGMP training. Today we're going to cover good documentation principles, and we'll have a little test at the end to make sure that you're absorbing the information that we put out for you. So let's go take a look at what it is we make here at Fabriteq. But first, let's scrub in. We'll start by washing our hands. Scrub for at least 20 seconds, continuously, using hot water. Make sure to cover all the hair on your head and on your face. This will leave our product free of contaminants. Then, put on a lab coat. Make sure it's buttoned all the way up. These are part of a process called good manufacturing practices, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's go take a look at what it is we make here at Fabriteq. We make products for the healthcare industry, and these are called medical devices, and they help save people's lives. But we also make good documentation that we sell to our customer to ensure that our products are safe and effective. We want to start by understanding current good manufacturing practices compliance. What is documentation, and how does it relate to the medical device manufacturing and packaging industry? We need to understand why we must document and why it's so important. We need to understand elements of good documentation practice and the significance of our signatures on any document. The FDA ensures the quality of its drug products by carefully monitoring drug manufacturers and medical device manufacturers for compliance with current good manufacturing practices. Each and every one of us is responsible and accountable for our jobs, and we all must continuously improve our knowledge and ability to apply these regulations to our everyday job and to our industry as a whole. This means that the latest and best practice, not last year, not last month, now, that means current. That's the C in CGMP, current good manufacturing principles or practices. It means we have to be ready to change. We need to be diverse, but also ready for an audit or an inspection from a regulatory body or the FDA at any time. But what is documentation? Why is it so important? Documentation is the orderly presentation, organization, and communication of recorded information to produce a historical record. Everything that we document is a historical record that can be audited or inspected and verified to prove what we did. It provides data about a specific item in the manufacturing or packaging lot, piece of equipment, components, or staffing. That means us. Each document helps tell the story about a specific item critical to the life cycle of a medical device product history. Remember, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So let's ask ourselves, why must we document? Well, the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, requires documented proof that medical devices and pharmaceuticals are manufactured, packaged, held and distributed according to the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, or CFR 21. Take a look at the regulatory references below. Here at Fabriteq, we operate under 21 CFR, Part 820, as well as ISO 13485, the International Standard for Quality in Manufacturing Medical Devices. Let's take a look at some elements of good documentation practices. All entries must be written in black or blue ink. The FDA prefers blue. It must be indelible, permanent. That means it will not fade, and it can't be erasable, so that's why pencils are not allowed in medical device manufacturing documentation. Remember, Whiteout is not allowed. Elements of good documentation practices include legible handwriting. Ensure that your handwriting is legible. Just because you were able to understand the writing does not mean that another reader can. Take your time to document the information neatly. Write-overs are not allowed. Do not write a word and then write over it to make a correction. The best practice is to place a line over and through the word you are correcting and then write a new word. Remember, you need to use the 4 C's of communication when writing: clear, concise, complete, and correct. Make sure your thoughts are clear. Make sure they're concise and to the point. Make sure that they're complete and you're not missing anything. And make sure they're adequate and correct to the topic. Do not ever assume that the reader will understand what you're writing. Make the data or information hard to understand. Never speculate, exaggerate, or use emotion to inflate the message you're trying to convey. Remember, we want to be grounded in good science and good technical writing. Let's take a moment to hear what my wife has to say. She works in the legal department and pretty smart about these kinds of things.
Remember, all medical device records are legal documents and could be summoned into a court of law if your organization is ever subject to a recall.
Did you say FDA recall? Court of law? I hope that never happens at our organization. But let's take a look at some very important document information.
What types of documents are legally binding in our industry? Logbooks, records, temperature humidity data, maintenance records, deviation reports, complaints, work instructions, master batch records, cleaning validation matrix, approved supplier list, inspection, preventative, specifications, investigations, SOPs, change control.
Remember, data accuracy is very important. That's why we need to ensure the data referenced in the writing is correct. Do not assume anything. Double check the information so that you can write it once and write it the first time. Elements of good documentation practices. Blank spaces should be a NA, meaning non-applicable. Follow your site's standard operating procedures, or SOPs. If an entry is not applicable, NA or NA will be entered. Indicate the blank has been completed but is not applicable. This takes up the space, but reflects in the documents that it's not pertinent to our organization or what we do. Any entry blanks entered NA but with an explanation not readily apparent must be supplemented with a written explanation and be signed by the associate. That means you. If multiple entry blanks will be marked NA, associates may draw a single line across the entry blank area and initial and date the line. Do you see the image below at the bottom of the screen? The line with the NA and the sign and date. Error correction. When you make a correction on a legal document, you should use one single line to cross out the error. Don't scribble. Don't use whiteout. Don't try to erase or write over. One single line to cross out the error. Sign your initials next to the line. Write the date that you made the correction. If the justification or the reason for making a correction is not readily evident, write down why the correction is being made. Do not scratch through or obliterate the error you are correcting. This can look like you're falsifying records. Remember what Sarah said about the court of law.
Remember, all medical device records are legal documents and could be summoned into a court of law if your organization is ever subject to a recall.
Error correction practices. The reasons for crossouts need to be specific. Acceptable reasons include, but are not limited to, CA or calculation error, spelling error, or as it's abbreviated, SE, capital or lowercase. Entry error may be abbreviated as EE, uppercase or lowercase. Date error. You'll just write the whole thing, date error. Copy or transcribe error may be abbreviated as CE or CE lowercase, or TE or TE lowercase. Late entry may be abbreviated as LE uppercase or LE lowercase. Error correction. When you make a correction on a legal document, you should ensure you do not use any other date other than the date that the correction is being made. It is not allowable to predate. It is not allowable to use whiteout. It is not allowable to backdate or to add a previous date. Remember, document at the time the action is taken. Document at the time of performance. So let's recap. Data accuracy. Ensure that the data referenced in the writing is correct. We never want to assume anything, and we never want to write down anything that we can't prove. Double check the information so that you can write it once and be right the first time. Remember, take the time to document accurately. Do not knowingly provide data that is inaccurate to make the situation look better. This type of documentation is clearly defined as a falsification. This is a crime, and this can lead to termination. Remember, if our documentation is recalled to a court of law, we don't want to be responsible or liable for these things. So do it right, do it clear, do it concise. Time documentation. The time of execution will be recorded as hour, minute, followed by an A or P or AM or PM, depending on your site's SOPs or standard operating procedures. Only document at the time of performance and the time of action, not at an earlier time, not at a later time. Don't document something that you haven't done yet. Recording data in the production department. Attach all graphs, charts, pictures, other supplemental documents to the MDR. Data entries that include units of measurement. The units of measurement should remain consistent throughout the record or the logbook. We're coming to a close, so I want to touch on two of the most important things to leave you with. What does your signature mean? Signatures have different meaning depending on the type of document you're signing. Examples include if you've performed a task, witnessed a task, authoring a document, approving a document, verifying information, or verifying a document. Remember, you are responsible and accountable for the actions associated with your signature. Remember what Sarah said. If we're under a recall, or if your documents end up in a court of law, and your signature is on those documents, you're liable for the activity on those documents. Never attach your signature to anything that you didn't personally verify or validate. If there's one thing to take away from this entire training, it's Alcoa Plus. Let me repeat that. That's Alcoa Plus. That's what we want to remember as we document and sign everything throughout our day and throughout our career in the medical device manufacturing industry. That means that everything we write should be attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. This will ensure that everything we have done is complete, consistent, enduring, and available. So what does that mean? Attributable. Attributable means that what we're writing is attributable to the subject that we're trying to convey. It directly conveys the message of the subject to our reader. Legible. Legible means that our handwriting is clearly understandable and each letter is differentiable from the letter before and following. Contemporaneous. That means it's present, current, and up to date. Original. We want to make sure that we are the original document writer and that we're not plagiarizing something that someone's done before. We never want to transfer data and assume that it's the same from a previous measurement, and we never want to transfer someone else's writing onto our own. Accurate. Remember what we said. We never assume anything about anything in the medical device manufacturing world. That's why we must absorb the information, evaluate the information, investigate the information, and make actions based on those investigations. And the only way that we can do that is if our writing is accurate. If we do those things, and all those things come together to make Alcoa Plus, then our document, our statement, our records will be complete, consistent, enduring, and available.